Yes, and that would be my mother who passed away in 2019, but was with me, through this journey. I didn't commonly give my mother manuscripts to read. She used to get the books when they were done. But when I finished the first, what I consider to be the first full draft of this novel, and that took a good 6 years. I started in 2013, 5 years, 2013 to about 2018 was when I was working on it. And then I gave my mother a draft and some other, people I consider first readers to give me feedback. But then my mother sort of followed me through the process and also checked all of my Creole, making sure that it was in the up-to-date orthography. So she even did research, to make sure because the Creole she grew up with in the 30s, through, her death was different from the Creole that I got to know is different from the Creole that's being taught now. So she wanted to make sure that it was in the orthography that was considered codified, is considered codified today. So she really was with me in this journey, and went through a remarkable journey at the end of her life. And so I wanted to celebrate her in the dedication, along with all of the people whose names we'll never know, who perished in the earthquake. At this count now is 316,000 is the total count. And many of those people were never counted to begin with, because when they were doing the surveying of Port-au-Prince, they were often asking people who had been there. So you had to have survived a household to be able to say two people were missing.
Oh
But
my
if
God.
nobody survived, there was no one to say, there used to be 5 people here, there used to be 10 people here. And so, they were able to approximate the count, and now it exceeds 300,000. And this is why I told the novel through so many different perspectives, is that I really wanted to be able to touch on, in a small way,
Mhm.
on all the different stories that are encompassed in those losses, but also in the survivors, those of us who are still here, and those people who were able to witness the earthquake and have their stories to tell. Well, to introduce readers to the novel, I always think Malou, I mean, this is why Malou opens the novel, because she's like anyone's grandmother, but she's also designed a little bit after my own great-grandmother. I have her picture behind me here, who was a market woman. So my mother's grandmother was a market woman, who actually, was able to take care of her family, so her daughter, then her grandchildren, and then also help other women in business in her time. And I sort of wanted to give an homage to her, but also because if anyone remembers the earthquake, the 2010 earthquake, a lot of the images that came out of Haiti at that time were of market women walking, or with huge amounts of produce on their heads, and sort of regally walking through these images of devastation. And yet I can't recall one interview with a market woman or one report from a market woman's point of view. And so when I started working on the novel, I thought, there needs to be space in this story that I'm going to tell for women like my grandmother, women who, like those women of the photographs, are never asked, how they feel about what's happening, or never asked what they think the future of Haiti could be, when in fact they are the people who hold the country together. And so that's why I wanted to start there. And also to start with that kind of image of very humble attending to others with whatever you have, which is a very Haitian way of being, but even more so for people who have humble backgrounds, and who give everything to others. The experience was very, if you think about it from beginning to end, from the period before writing, the period of writing, the period of the editorial period, we're talking about an 11-year period. Um, and, and then we're now in a pandemic, and many of us have experienced different kinds of losses. And so in my own life, as I stated at the beginning, I lost my mother. We lost also her sibling group, people of different ages, but who all passed away within 2 years of each other. And I think one of the things that came out of this novel for me was that I have, as a novelist, some capacity to write about death or grief. And so I think that will move into my next novel, not necessarily the topic of death itself, but it's made me reflect on this generation of aunts, uncles, my mother that I've lost, and that perhaps many people have lost, a layer of a society that's gone. And in this part of my family, we're talking about people who are Haitian and Haitian of Dominican descent, which is unusual. So people from the other side of the island, to the Dominican Republic. And so I want to sort of delve into their past. And so
Mm.
in some ways, it's a celebration of their life. So this is a roundabout way of
Right.
saying that dealing with grief for so long has made me think about how can we celebrate life and maybe some things that are past and bring that alive in a new story that can be told, that perhaps cannot be told by the protagonists themselves, but can
Yeah.
be told on their behalf.